focus on what is best for your clients. If you stay focused on always acting in the best interests of clients, as fiduciaries, that's what we do. We act in the best interests of our clients. For me, that client experience has really been the touchstone of everything that I do. And so throughout my career, I try to stay focused on really trying to deliver the best service and the best outcomes for clients. And then from there, you can go into, whatever your area of expertise is, bringing in other experts to deliver those and, developing those solutions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of CBS Spotlight. I'm Eric Alvarado, along with my co-host, Mr. Ted Hikes, and we are joined today by Teresa De Leon, who is the Executive Vice President and National Director of Sales at Arden Trust Company. She's got more than 20 years experience in the trust and estate planning space, so Teresa has become a real go-to resource for advisors looking to bring deeper planning and better outcomes for their clients. So we'll talk about what drew her into her work, what makes Arden's advisor-first model unique, and how trust planning is really evolving and where insurance naturally fits into the conversation. It's practical, clear, and full of insights advisors can use right away. So, Teresa, thank you for jumping on our show. And is there anything that I missed?
No, absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here, and let's get right into it.
Awesome.
Teresa, thanks again for being here. It's been a long time coming. I know we've been discussing this internally, having you on for a while. So we're excited to have you here. But I guess what I'd like to know, kind of to start off, and the audience would like to know, is what originally drew you into the trust and estate planning space, and what's kept you engaged in that space for now over 20 years?
Well, there's essentially two reasons. I think the first is that in the trust business, you're dealing with individuals and families and really stories, and everyone is unique. Every family has a story. Every business owner has the story of how they started. And it's just fascinating. And I've always been curious to learn more. And I think it's made it a very interesting ride for all these many years. The other thing I would say is that I always feel that we're having real impact. We're helping families to maintain their wealth, to transition their wealth, to leave a legacy, to protect their loved ones, and really just helping them achieve their dreams. And what could be better than that? So right. Just in terms of, how I feel we're making an impact and how we're helping people every single day. And so I think for that reason, this has been a great opportunity for me to serve others and, do my job, essentially.
Beautiful. I love that you said that, in part of your last answer there, that it's a chance for you to serve others. I think that's always great. And part of the reason why I stay in this business as well. What made Arden Trust feel different and worth joining for you? And can you explain a little bit what Arden actually does for advisors and who may not be familiar with what you guys do?
Absolutely. And the two are very much related. So Arden Trust has a very unique model. We provide corporate trustee services, but we work in collaboration with financial advisors, and the financial advisors get to continue to manage the investments. And that's really what drew me to Arden to begin with. I had been in the wealth management business for many years, and in that scenario, you're working as a team, you're providing a lot of different services to clients, but you really cannot work with advisors who have longstanding relationships without them having to give up the assets, essentially, and give up that relationship. And I started looking for an opportunity where that didn't have to be the case. And Arden's model is unique in that regard. And I can work with an advisor who has established a long-term relationship with clients and families, who's already investing their assets and managing their assets and is meeting their objectives for many years. And we get to come into that relationship in a collaborative way and just be additive to that relationship without disrupting what has already been in place, but actually providing the administrative corporate trustee services that we are expert at. And so I like to think of it as sort of delivering the best of both worlds. And so we can let the advisors do what they do best. We can pair that with our administrative services. And I think Arden is very unique in that opportunity. And I think particularly in this environment where I think people are turning more and more to trust in general for protection and tax efficiencies, and really more than anything for family dynamics. And that's probably not what was on top of mind when Arden started 50 years ago. But in today's world, the family dynamics and the emotions and those are the issues that actually make a difference. And so being able to work with advisors, and similarly, we're in a situation where there's a strong move toward independence from advisors, getting out with, large broker dealers, the big bank trust companies, and being able to do that and still provide trust services for their clients.
Mhm.
Makes this a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Teresa, you touched on, I think, a little bit how Arden is really known for being an advisor-friendly, trust company practice. I'm interested in kind of having you describe what does that day-to-day, relationship interaction look like between Arden Trust and an advisor that is looking to partner with you?
Sure. Well, it is very much a collaboration. We are, even though we're in two separate organizations, we are a team. We are in constant communication. I always say when we are working with a new advisor and a new client, the trust officer at Arden is not only the single point of contact for the client, but they are also the single point of contact for the advisor. And they are in communication. Anything that we are communicating to the client, we are also making sure that we are communicating with the advisor as well. We are meeting jointly. And really, as I said, it's a full partnership and trying to make sure that we really get the best outcomes for the client, that we're meeting the client's needs, that we are constantly in sync about anything that needs to be done, any financial needs of the clients, making sure that the communication is free and flowing. And our goal is really to try to make it as seamless for the advisor as possible. And we like to think that, obviously our end clients are our clients, but the advisors are also our clients. We want to make sure that it is a good experience across the board and as seamless as possible. I frequently say, the benefit for advisors is you can work with clients that are in trust structures with trusts, but you don't have to be a trust expert. We want to handle that aspect. We want to make it so that you can continue to do what you do, and you don't need to get into the intricacies of the trust document. You can rely on your partners at Arden Trust to make sure that that's handled.
It sounds like almost you are an extension of the advisor's team. It's a service that they can provide, just an expansion of all the offerings that they can provide to clients, whether they're existing clients or as they're trying to bring on new clients. It's an additional service. You guys almost act as an extension of their team, even though you are a separate entity. Is that a fair statement?
That's exactly right. If we get it right, that's what it is. It's an extension. And I often am on calls with, advisors and their clients as if I am a member of their team. It is important. Many of the clients, as you know, have not only trust assets, but also assets outside of the trust. So this is a good way for advisors to be able to consolidate the assets. And that's a really important benefit for the client. And it's also a good way for the advisor to really build on their AUM, and also to, when you're prospecting, we all keep hearing about, the incredible wealth transfer and all of the assets that are in trust. And, what I want to say to advisors is that it should be part of your business acquisition strategy. You don't have to be a trust advisor. You don't have to have a trust company. You've got Arden Trust as a partner. You can actually go after those trust assets, and we can help you with that business.
That's great great information and great insight, Teresa. Appreciate that. What trends are you seeing right now in the world of trusts and things? And are advisors becoming more proactive with the trust planning? And are most conversations still happening late in the game, or are advisors getting smart about it and kind of starting the conversation early?
Well, the answer to both questions is yes, right? They are often late in the process, but we are seeing a move toward having those conversations earlier and more often. I think across the industry, we're all being asked to be more focused on planning, more planning based in our advice across the board. I'm sure you're seeing that on your end as well. And in fact, so there is really a growing trend towards starting with planning. And I always say, trust is a solution. It's not just the solution. So before you jump to the answer, you really need to ask all the right questions and really get into a planning mode so that you can look at all of the opportunities. As I had said earlier, I think historically trusts have been more about tax efficiencies uh, and privacy and probate and so forth. But I think more and more today you're seeing them around some of the emotional dynamics of the family. And we often say, people used to think you had to have a very high net worth to really need trust or to utilize trust. And I think that's not the case. I think we're finding how important it is for everyone to be planning, to thinking ahead, to having even a living trust or a revocable trust in place. And so you're seeing more and more focus on and more advisors looking for partners and assistance in being able to deliver that for their clients as well.
Yeah, and I think we see stuff in the news all the time where families are fighting over things that are going through, and it's just like, why? How did a family that has even modest wealth of a few $1,000,000, how are they not doing this type of planning ahead of time and just letting things fall to probate or whatever? And I think you said emotion, I think, gets into a lot of those situations like that, and can be tough, right? So I think having the plan and working with the right team like Arden and making sure those things get settled properly just makes it so much easier long term, right? So
Exactly. And it's not that it happens necessarily in every case that there's that tension and disharmony, but why leave it to chance? Getting that plan in place, making sure that everything happens as it should, and you can be very deliberate and intentional. We're seeing more of interest in people leaving, sort of legacy plan and leaving, a charitable intent for the family, making sure that they're not just leaving it for, as we say, for people to live on for the rest of their lives, but rather leaving a legacy for the family and, instilling in the next generation a family mission or vision around some particular type of giving. So again, you can not leave that to chance. You can put all of that into a document and make sure, protecting individuals. When you all see in your industry as well, needing to equalize distributions. How do we account for the inevitable child that doesn't want to go into the business and the one that does, right? And now we're seeing it much more intentional. I think in the past, people would try to even everything out. Now we're seeing sometimes it's an intentional unequal distribution, but there are lots of ways that you can utilize trust and insurance, frankly, to make sure that you provide what you need for each of the individuals, and again, put that in place so that you don't have that uncertainty and that tension that comes up later on.
What's going to happen with our possessions, but but not what's going to happen with the emotional wealth, for lack of a better term, of our family. So it's that was interesting when you touched on the emotional side. That kind of hit home with me.
Well, and it's very hard to predict. Human nature is what it is. But you have a situation, it's very, emotional to begin with the passing of a loved one. Even situations where you don't anticipate. I'm sure you've all heard it many times. People will tell you everybody gets along fine, everybody's doing fine. There's no, they're never going to have a problem, and that's true until it's not, right? And it doesn't really matter whether it's $20 million or $2 million. People will sometimes the disputes come over the simplest things. But again, I think it's just important to plan and important for people to communicate that information too. That's another thing that we're seeing a little bit more openness. I think historically people have been very secretive, not wanting to share even with their own next generation how much wealth there is, what's going to happen, waiting until they die for everyone to find out. And I think, yeah, the big reveal. And of course, I mean, I think in our business, we spend a lot of time when we come into a role as a trustee, first of all, explaining what does the trust say? What does the document mean? What does it allow for? Now, and that's a really tough conversation to have at a tough time. So now we're seeing, we always encourage a little bit more communication beforehand. They don't have to give, the detailed statements and dollars and all of that, but just to be able to say, this is what we've put in place. This is the way it will work. Here's Arden Trust. They will be serving as a corporate trustee to help guide you through this process. And I think just giving people that peace of mind and that preparation ahead of time goes a long way.
Definitely being able to explain to your heirs while you are still alive some of the reasoning behind decisions you made would often see it. I mean, it's much better to do it that way than to, leave them guessing, right? After you're gone, and then they're suddenly guessing, well, why was it done this way? That doesn't seem fair. That doesn't seem right. So yeah, interesting.
It's a horrible time to do family therapy, that's for sure.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's good. Sometimes it's a reality check for for the parents or the grantors, because I will say many times I'm told we want to keep the family vacation home for the grandkids, or a property for the family to enjoy in generations to come. And then you get around the table and none of the children is interested in actually retaining that property. They're not going to, they've all, moved to different states. They're not actually going to come back and utilize it. And it becomes a drain rather than, so again, I think it's just understanding, what to expect, and then being realistic about, who's actually going to be interested in running the business when you're gone, and who's just clearly not. And then, and then you get into more specific needs, who's going to be able to take care of themselves regardless of what happens, and then who might need a little extra help. And you're right. And so I think, and all of the family dynamics are the thing I think that makes this business so interesting. And it is really where you can demonstrate that the planning can make a difference. Right. So the estate tax efficiencies and so forth are always there, but impact that it has on the family harmony is really where you make the difference.
Very good point.
I guess in our world, doing insurance planning with advisors every day, we have a similar role in that we view ourselves as an extension of the advisor's practice, the advisor's team. And obviously we are dealing in, trusts, obviously not anywhere near to the extent that your team is every day, that you are. But I'm just curious, like, from your perspective, where does life insurance kind of fit naturally inside of trust strategy, and where does it, kind of transition from nice to have to an absolute necessity?
So it's interesting that you say that. I think insurance is a really critical part of estate planning. And I actually think, much like the trust business, which I think has evolved from the early days when people thought it was just about, saving on estate taxes and you had to have a taxable estate to even consider it. I think insurance is like that as well. We're long past the point where it's just income replacement, which I think is the traditional way. It really has become a critical estate planning tool. Obviously, whether you think about it from the standpoint of, a standard ILIT where you would actually be taking assets that would come out of the estate. And there's obviously that benefit. But I will say liquidity. The number one issue that we face when we are settling estates is that people have not taken time to provide for the liquidity. And it's not quick. And so you have people who are immediately, looking for cash. You need cash to pay a variety of bills and things. And, all your assets are tied up. You can't liquidate everything. You can't sell properties and so forth. So I think that's a really key element that people overlook. And then obviously paying for the estate taxes, the inevitable estate taxes that do come in a taxable estate. And I'm amazed at how people will think we were just working on a situation where the client had a really successful business and they were just under the estate tax threshold, but I thought to myself, and I said to them, well, yes, but you're not dying today. You've got another 20 years. And in 20 years, this is definitely going to be a taxable estate. So I think getting people to think about that, I think the issues of, so to me, it's a critical estate planning tool. It's a solution. And if we're doing it right, we're doing it together, and talking about, what are the objectives? What do we want to accomplish? What are the risks going into an estate planning situation? And then what are the possible solutions? I talked about sort of the unequal distribution of wealth that is very deliberate sometimes, but insurance is a great equalizer, right? So one child wants to retain the business and they have that as an enormous asset. One child doesn't want to be engaged in the business, but you want to give them something. And lots of times, you can use insurance as a tool in that regard. So I think, what I would say is, it's really an opportunity to think about insurance in a much broader way than I think people have historically thought about it. It has a lot of opportunity as part of that overall plan, and it's been great for me working with, Jack Elder and your team as we go out and talk with, looking at planning solutions and looking at what we can do together to provide for the needs of that family. So it's come, I think, a long way in terms of people's thinking. And I will say the beauty of it is that it is not about a product, right? So we are not a product push. It's not a trust document that we're selling. It's not an insurance policy that we're looking to sell. It's really a solution. It's an estate planning solution. And then let's figure out where the gaps are and what we need to do. And then what's the best and most effective and efficient way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I like that you touched on the fact that, liquidity is such a big issue when you die. I don't think a lot of people think about that. I think maybe they think from the tax perspective and the estate tax, but if you don't have an estate tax still, you think about like hospital bills that come due and things that come up from that death, paying for the funeral, things of that nature. Where are people going to pull money from, out of their savings and things like that can easily deplete and really hurt their situation if they don't have a plan in place and have something like a life insurance policy. It doesn't have to be a big policy, but just something that, to help that liquidity bump to get them through that rough time and, keep them going. So very good point. So if you were going to explain to an advisor that maybe doesn't use trust as much, I guess, can you walk through a simple example where insurance inside a trust really creates a better outcome for a family?
Well, I would say, again, having the irrevocable life insurance trust where you can create a policy, you get it out of the estate from the very beginning, and, you have that already put aside. Most of the time when we're doing estate planning with, certainly with any of the larger net worth clients, they will always have pairing of that with a life insurance trust. And it's a good way to ensure that liquidity that is so key. And again, you have the privacy of that because it's all out of probate, it's out of the estate. You can save it from, making it a taxable piece of the estate to begin with. And so we see that as a pretty optimal use for pretty much everyone. And we see that across various levels of net worth, where that is it's a good solution for many clients, and if not most. So that's where we're seeing it. As I said, I think you're seeing insurance policies in general to cover a lot of, sort of the wealth protection, estate efficiencies, tax optimization, all of those. It's just one more strategy, one more tool. And so we're seeing that. We do see the trust as the beneficiary of life insurance policies. It's a very efficient way to get the proceeds into the trust without having to go through an administrative process. It's so we see that that beneficiary designation as a really seamless way to transfer the ownership of policies as well.
All right, Tracy, you've given us kind of a wealth of information today, but I think if I'm an advisor listening to this, the question is, how do I get started? Right? Like, what's one thing they can do this quarter to start incorporating trust planning for their practice? And then, after you answer that question, how do they get a hold of Arden Trust to help them?
So the first thing you need to be doing is, talking to your clients. Do they have an estate plan? What are their documents look like? Have they updated them recently if they haven't? That's a great way to begin the conversation, because then you can look at what their objectives are. If they haven't got a plan, they certainly need to put one in place. But if they do we need to update it? Have they incorporated a corporate trustee? Have they considered that? If not, it's a great way to introduce the topic, and we're happy to come out and speak with individual clients and advisors about why you would want to use a corporate trustee versus naming an individual, your son or daughter, etc. So that, I think, is the first way for them to get started, and then to begin to build from there. And then again, leverage the resources at your disposal. You don't have to do everything and know everything on your own. You have to be right. You have to be able to focus on what you do best, but also know that you have resources like CBS, like Arden Trust around you, and bring us in, and we're happy to consult on an individual estate plan and make some recommendations and so forth. So I think if you focus on that, start with the questions, see where you can make a difference for each of your clients, you can build from there. In terms of getting in touch with Arden Trust, we have the Arden Trust website. I obviously am on LinkedIn and all of that. You can reach me at I don't know. I give the website, Teresa. My email, teresa.deleon@ardentrust.com. But you can reach out to us, and we're happy to engage in a conversation and talk through any opportunities with you as well.
We'll include the link in the show notes. I hear people on podcasts all the time. So we'll figure out how to include the link in the show notes for them.
Okay, good.
There you go. Exactly. So.
I wasn't really prepared for
that. You hit it out of the park.
Yeah, exactly. So beautiful.
All right.
Teresa, thank you so much. I'm learning a lot here. I guess I've got one last question for you. And I guess what's one piece of advice you could give to advisors, or even your younger self, about building a career and making a bigger impact in this business?
So that's a great question. I think for me, I would say focus on what is best for your clients. If you stay focused on always acting in the best interest of clients, as fiduciaries, that's what we do. We act in the best interest of our clients. For me, that client experience has really been the touchstone of everything that I do. And so throughout my career, I try to stay focused on really trying to deliver the best service and the best outcomes for clients. And then from there, you can go into whatever your area of expertise is, bringing in other experts to deliver those and developing those solutions. But I think the first thing is to start with, it's not about a product. It's not about you. It's not about your industry. It's really about the client. What does the client really need? And once you start from that perspective, you can open up a whole host of things. And those are the things that will make that matter most to the client. And the things that matter most to the client are the things that are, in the end, going to be the best for you in terms of your career and being able to deliver for those clients. So I would say just keep that focus. And there's nothing more fulfilling than being able to say you're helping clients at the end of the day.
That's true. Especially when you see those tough situations, right? And you're like, gosh, I'm glad we're able to put something in place for them to just kind of ease them through those really tough times. So.
Exactly. And for us in trust, it is often about peace of mind, because a lot of times what we're actually going to be doing, we're not doing yet. But it's really the conversation that gives them, again, that whole planning conversation really is about delivering peace of mind. That's what we try to do.
That's a great point. I mean, you're probably, especially now 20 years in the business, have you had situations where you did something maybe early in your career that you put something together and now you were able to see kind of the rewards for that or the fruits of like a completion
Exactly.
of a plan come to play?
Exactly. That's right. You see it play out, and then you think it's enormously satisfying, but also you get incredible great gratitude from the clients because they know that you worked with, mom and dad or whomever, and everything is working smoothly and seamlessly, and that's enormously gratifying as well.
Well, thank you very much. That wraps up our conversation with Teresa De Leon of Arden Trust Company. Teresa highlighted how trust planning, when supported by the right partners, can really help advisors strengthen relationships and create long-term value for clients. So again, a big thank you to Teresa. I'm Eric Alvarado, along with Mr. Ted Hikes. Thank you for joining us on CBS Spotlight. And if you like the episode and learned something, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks. It was great, guys.